Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Ollie Barrett, live from London, and these are the headlines. Britain's sending a team of experts to Ukraine to help local authorities investigate reports of war crimes, including alleged sexual violence committed by Russian troops. Russia confirms it carried out an airstrike on Kiev during a visit by the UN Secretary-General, as Ukraine plans an operation to evacuate civilians from the besieged Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. Ukrainian President Zelensky has been invited to participate in the G20 summit in November, which will also be attended by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, according to the president of the host nation Indonesia. South Africa may be entering a fifth COVID wave earlier than expected after a sustained rise in infections in the last 14 days that seems to be driven by Omicron subvariants. The Eurozone's economic growth slows in the first quarter as record high inflation and the war in Ukraine derail hopes that a post-pandemic recovery would continue. And India offers a $10 billion incentive plan for those investing in semiconductor manufacturing as the Modi government woos global companies in a bid to become a key player in the global supply chain. The UK government is being urged to take immediate action after claims a British Member of Parliament looked at pornography in the House of Commons chamber. The Chief Whip of the Conservative Party has called on the Commons independent watchdog to launch a probe, but the opposition are calling on Prime Minister Boris Johnson to immediately suspend the currently unnamed lawmaker at the centre of the allegations while they are investigated.
Are you ashamed that one of your Conservative MPs has been accused of watching porn in the Commons? And if those allegations are found to be correct and true, will this person face losing the whip?
Well, I think it's obviously unacceptable for anybody to be doing that kind of thing in the workplace. It would be the same for any kind of job up and down the country. Let's be absolutely clear about that. What needs to happen now is that the proper procedures need to be gone through. The independent complaints and grievances procedure needs to be activated, and we need to get to understand the facts. But yeah, I mean, this is clearly, that kind of behaviour is clearly totally unacceptable.
Well, I'm joined now by our correspondent Laura Macon-Isherwood, who's joining us live from our London studio. Laura, explain how this process now plays out with this having been referred to the watchdog.
Well, this watchdog was set up in 2018 to try to deal with allegations that have been made before and the treatment, of course, of female MPs within the House of Commons and the wider parliamentary estate and in politics in general. Now, this watchdog will look at what evidence they can find. 2 female MPs have reported seeing this unnamed Conservative MP looking at porn within the House of Commons chamber. They've said this at a meeting that took place earlier this week, and so this complaint is now being looked into. Now, it won't be investigated externally by any other investigating body unless a formal complaint is lodged by one of the witnesses. So currently, it is simply the watchdog that is is looking into what happened. As Boris Johnson says, he wants them to be establishing the facts. That will be their job right now. It could be that they find that that unnamed Conservative MP was found to have been doing that within the House of Commons chamber. If that's the case, they can make a recommendation to the party whip to suspend them. Now, if they are suspended for a certain length of time, that could then lead to a potential by-election within their constituency, the area of the country that that Member of Parliament is responsible for representing. But that has to be called by the public themselves. And so it leaves this in a very sort of confusing situation, I suppose, as to what might actually happen to this MP if they are found to have been guilty, essentially, and were watching those and looking at those images that those female MPs claim to have seen. Now, Labour, the opposition party, say that a shift needs to happen immediately, a change in culture. They want that this person to be suspended. But the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, appears to be holding back from doing that straight away, saying that it's up to the watchdog to establish those facts, and a decision can only be made once that's been decided.
OK, Laura, you mentioned the culture around the Palace of Westminster. You've spent a lot of time in and around Westminster reporting and talking to MPs over the years, and these latest allegations just seem to be opening up something of a floodgate of other claims about sexism, misogyny and work culture in and around Westminster. What does all of this say about what it's like as a place to work?
Yeah, MPs have been coming forward, and women that have been working within the Palace of Westminster for decades, saying that the area is rife with misogyny. There have been claims made against a number of MPs before about inappropriate behaviour there, even from one of the cabinet ministers currently, Anne-Marie Trevelyan. We've heard from her today. She said that she herself had been pinned up against a wall and had to deal with misogynistic actions and inappropriate behaviour as well. So this is not the first time that this has been an issue within Parliament. We know that the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says that he wants a culture shift immediately, that actually this is just the tip of the iceberg, essentially. And as you said, it could lead to a lot more complaints coming through. Of course, we heard just earlier this week, Angela Rayner was subjected to an article within the Mail on Sunday, published in that newspaper, where an unnamed, anonymous Conservative MP claimed that she was crossing and uncrossing her legs to try to distract the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And so there continues to be this issue with sexism and with misogyny within the grounds of that palace. Caroline Lucas, another prominent female Member of Parliament, said that around 56 MPs are currently under investigation for various claims. It's unlikely that this is going to be the last that we hear of this. The question is whether a shift can be brought about, whether this independent watchdog does what it's supposed to do and try to establish the facts in this case to do with this pornography viewing, and then ultimately whether the system allows for change and whether the MPs that are currently serving within the House of Commons decide to abide by those changes.
OK, Laura, thank you. That's Laura Makin-Isherwood reporting live from London. Well, we will stay with UK politics, and we've got a busy week or so coming up. The UK is getting set for local elections next week. It's a mix of council, mayor and assembly elections that will take place across Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and in towns and metropolitan areas of England. Almost 7,000 seats are up for grabs in total, and if Boris Johnson's Conservatives perform particularly badly, it might encourage a leadership challenge against him. One of the most closely watched contests will be Newcastle-under-Lyme in the north of England. This Brexit-backing town was traditionally a stronghold for the main opposition Labour Party, but the Conservatives won the parliamentary seat in 2019 for the first time in a century. But can Labour make gains in a place like that? Might voters take out current dissatisfaction against the Prime Minister and Chancellor Rishi Sunak with local votes?
I don't think Boris Johnson represents anybody, particularly working class. I don't think Sunak, is that his name, Sunak? Yeah. I don't think he's got any idea about people. I don't think they've got any idea about life, because they're all born with a silver spoon in their mouth, aren't they? You know, and they're just not part of society. They think they are, they con you into that, but you can see they're not when they're having these parties and everybody else is sat at home, doing nothing.
I think he should resign because he just hasn't proved to be a trustworthy leader. He's lied several times, and, someone who lies like that, are they lying to us about other things?
As far as I'm concerned, it's an irrelevance that we can do without and leave the government to get on with what they were put there to do.
The Western alliance is pulling out all the stops to try and counter Russian aggression. NATO is looking towards a Nordic expansion, with Finland and Sweden possibly becoming members. The UK is sending over 8,000 troops to take part in NATO exercises across Eastern Europe. It's one of the largest deployments by the UK since the Cold War. Dozens of tanks will be sent to countries ranging from Finland to North Macedonia. Tens of thousands of troops from NATO and the Joint Expeditionary Force will be conducting drills. And Joe Biden has requested $33 billion in new support for Ukraine from the US Congress.
In what would be a dramatic escalation of U.S. funding for Ukraine's war with Russia, President Joe Biden asked Congress for $33 billion to support Kyiv, and the Ukrainian president pleaded with lawmakers to give the request a swift approval. Biden's massive request includes over $20 billion for weapons, ammunition, and other military assistance, as well as $8.5 billion in direct economic assistance to the government and $3 billion in humanitarian aid.
And we're facilitating a significant flow of weapons and systems to Ukraine from our allies and partners around the world, including tanks, artillery, and other weapons. That support is moving with unprecedented speed.
Biden's latest pledge of support came as Russia on Thursday warned the West not to test its patience, accusing the United States and its key allies of undermining European security by openly inciting Ukraine to assault Russia. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova.
Kyiv and Western capitals should take seriously the statement by our country's defense ministry that further inciting of Ukraine to strike Russian territory will definitely lead to a tough response from Russia.
That followed comments earlier this week from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who warned the West not to underestimate the elevated risks of nuclear conflict over Ukraine.
No one should be making idle comments about the use of nuclear weapons or the possibility of the need to use that. It's irresponsible.
In addition to his $33 billion request, the president also wants the ability to seize more money from Russian oligarchs to pay for the war efforts.
We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains.
The proposal includes letting the Justice Department use the strict U.S. racketeering law once deployed against the mafia to build cases against people who evade sanctions.
At least 10 people have been injured as Russian rockets hit Kyiv while the UN Secretary-General was there on an official visit. The strikes hit the central Shevchenko district, including the lower floors of a 25-story building.
Video obtained by Reuters showed the immediate aftermath of blasts in Kyiv Thursday. Smoke and fire could be seen from the wreckage, debris on the street. Emergency services rushed to the scene after the city's mayor said Russia fired 2 missiles into the Ukrainian capital during a visit by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who earlier met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for talks focusing on efforts to evacuate civilians from the Russian-besieged southern port of Mariupol. Kyiv has enjoyed relative calm since Russian invasion forces failed to capture it in the face of stiff Ukrainian resistance and withdrew several weeks ago, but remains vulnerable to longer-range Russian heavy weaponry. Guterres told Portuguese broadcaster RTP when asked about the blast, quote, "There was an attack on Kyiv. It shocked me, not because I'm here, but because Kyiv is a sacred city for Ukrainians and Russians alike." Zelensky's chief of staff said the blasts were proof that Ukraine needs a quick victory over Russia, because every day Ukraine pays a high price. Reuters could not independently verify the cause of the explosions. After being beaten back in efforts to capture Kyiv in the north, Russia has shifted strategy. Russian forces are now entrenched in the east, where Moscow-backed separatists have held some territory since 2014 and also hold a swath of the south they seized in March. President Vladimir Putin calls Russian actions a special military operation to disarm Ukraine that became necessary as the United States was using the country to threaten Russia. And Moscow had to defend Russian-speaking people from persecution. Ukraine says it is fighting an imperial-style land grab and that Putin's claims of persecution are nonsense. Western countries have ramped up weapons supplies to Ukraine in recent days as the fighting in the east has escalated. More than 40 countries met this week at a U.S. air base in Germany and pledged to send heavy arms such as artillery for what is expected to be a vast battle of opposing armies along a heavily fortified front line on open, flat terrain.
Twitter has reported a mixed set of earnings for the first quarter of 2022. Revenue and ad sales fell short of expectations, but the company says it's added 12 million new users in the first 3 months of this year.
Twitter released its first quarter results on Thursday towards the end of a dramatic week for the company. The social media group said it added more users than Wall Street had predicted in the first quarter. That was despite revenue coming in slightly below estimates at $1.2 billion. The update comes just days after Twitter agreed a $44 billion sale to Tesla's Elon Musk. He withdrew all previously provided goals and outlook given the pending buyout. If Musk does take over, he'll be in charge of a company that had 229 million daily active users in the first quarter. That is above what analysts had forecast and up from 199 million a year before. Twitter has struggled to stop growth in its user base from slowing, but it has aimed to improve its targeting and measurement of ads. It also spent heavily on initiatives like video adverts. Musk has said he plans to fix and improve Twitter without elaborating on exactly what that means. But he has spoken about a subscription-based business model and a crackdown on bot accounts.
Let's head now to an island in the middle of a lake in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The island in the country's south is called Ijwi. It's famous for producing a renowned Arabica bean. And for 9 years, only women have worked on this plantation.
Thousands of women work on this plantation. They are harvesting coffee cherries in Kivu, in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Each berry contains 2 coffee beans. An upliftment group called Rebuild Women's Hope is empowering them through work. Its founder, Marceline Budza, explains.
We started this initiative 9 years ago, and I really feel that our goals are being achieved, because now women can smile, women can be financially autonomous, they can earn money.
Budza was inspired by a sense of injustice for the women who work this land. They are often excluded from the processing and marketing parts of the business. Here, the women also sort and dry the coffee.
I have been working in the coffee business for 6 years. This work allowed me to put my children through school and to feed them.
And there are big plans to recruit thousands more women and double the plantation's production.
Our coffee is consumed in the United States, Europe and Asia. We produce a specialty coffee that is very much appreciated internationally, so the demand is there.
The plantation is located on the island of Ijwi, a 300 square kilometre hunk of mountainous land in the middle of Lake Kivu. The Arabica bean that is grown here is renowned for its taste.
It's a high-altitude coffee. It's a coffee that has an exceptional flavour, with an exceptional aroma too. And it's thanks to this soil, which is volcanic, that make Congolese coffee so special.
Once dried, the beans are sent to this agricultural cooperative in Goma for the final stage of production. And here too, it's women manning the fort. Thanks to the coffee of Kivu, 600 women earn their living each time the harvest rolls around.
Next to Bangkok and the city's own Fight Club. It is reminiscent of the 1999 Hollywood blockbuster, but it's controversial.
Beneath an underpass in Thailand, harsh lighting, echoes of cheers and a brawl. Fighters are engaging in a duel, a hook here, a jab there and a counter-punch. Blow by blow, the fighters muster on, but here there are no knockout punches. The players fight till they are tired.
What attracts people to the club is the variety of occupations, the variety of fighting styles that are different from the styles in the ring. There is no price negotiation for gambling. This is fighting by instinct. It's an underground fight, and I think that's the charm of Fight Club.
Inspired by a famous Hollywood flick, the players at the Fight Club can go all out and can vent out their aggression. But even the spectators warn against uncontrolled rage.
Being able to express your aggression here is a whole lot better than getting yourself into street fights and acting with your emotions. Street fights cannot solve any problems, and you'll only end up in jail.
The organizers say that no gambling is allowed and the bouts are only for fun. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
London is hosting an exhibition where installations blur the lines between physical and virtual artworks. The exhibition mixes art, technology and vivid light displays. We will leave you with those vivid light displays. Thanks very much for watching. See you next week.
It is very, very immersive. You love the sound, the visuals. I would say that there are some works that I found a lot stronger than others. There are some works which have like a deeper message and they carry through stronger than the others. And there are some where you think, visually, I'm very impressed. Do I get something more from this? Maybe not. I love what UVA do with light, where you've got little beams of light crisscrossing as you walk through them. It's almost like you're walking through laser grids. It's kind of meditative, but also it's kind of, there's a bit of fear in you, you know, what's going to happen. You know, you think of lasers from movies, you think they might slice you up or anything, but they don't.
This is right, Arab.